I will introduce both of our guests today. First, we have Veronica Vences, who's the Director of Development at the La Luz Center. She was born and raised in Sonoma County, where her parents settled to work in agriculture after emigrating from Mexico. Veronica received BA degrees in both economics and urban studies from San Diego State University. After graduating, she worked with the County of Sonoma's Human Services Department. She subsequently received a master's degree in applied economics from San Jose State University. Her dedication is around serving the community and blending the use of data that guides effective evidence-based decision-making, and as a result, leads to fair economic development and healthier communities. José Soto is the music specialist and director of the youth Mariachi Ensemble at Luther Burbank Center for the Arts. A lifelong musician, José regained early recognition at the age of 12, winning a prestigious national singing competition in Jalisco, Mexico, which provided him with a scholarship for singing lessons. An award-winning local musician, he was honored as Student of the Year at Elsie Allen High School in 2012 and graduated from Sonoma State University in 2018 with a Bachelor of Music in Music Education. In addition to composing, arranging, and recording original songs, José has also worked with the Santa Rosa City School District as their mariachi teacher and been a guest teacher at SSU instructing a music class in mariachi. So I'll now turn it over to Veronica and José and take it away.
Thank you, Sam. So before we get going, I do want to say thank you to Creative Sonoma. Thank you to our sponsoring organizations and to La Luz and Luther Burbank for allowing us to have this conversation. I think it's timely. It's the climate of social justice, the climate of so much racial reckoning it has really led to these conversations. And I hope that all of our viewers are able to take some profound, at least thoughts and for moving forward. As we get grounded and as we get started, I did want to start with a definition of equity that I find inspiring. So, equity as a noun, just and fair inclusion. An equitable society is one in which all can participate and prosper. The goals of equity must be to create conditions that allow all to reach their full potential. And in short, equity creates a path from hope to change. I take that and I think about a process. And I think today within our conversation with José, you'll see and be able to learn about his process and how he's embedding equity, not only in his programming, but I would say it has a ripple effect throughout Sonoma County. And I'm sure that Jalisco can also hear it, José, where your roots are at. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this conversation going. I think typically when these conversations happen, we talk about positions and roles, but José, can you tell us about who you are before we jump into what you do and where you come from? ¿Quién es José? Who is José? And what has played a pivotal role in your upbringing?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. And Veronica, if I tell you who is José, José is a very happy kid who has 5 brothers and 1 sister, still has their mom and dad, very lucky of that. Tomorrow, there's a picture. We took that picture 13 years ago, 2 weeks before we came to the United States. Tomorrow, it will be 13 years since we got to Santa Rosa. Basically, my father spent many years of his life working here in the fields and different mariachis, working for us to get our legal documents. And 13 years ago, he got his dream. That was his goal, to get us all to this country. And we took that picture. So I'm a family guy. I'm a kid who comes, from Jalisco, and I'm very passionate guy about music and family.
I love that, José. And I love that you were open and willing to share this very intimate photo where, one thing that when I look at this, I'm seeing everybody crammed in together, like knowing that they're one familia, that they're connected, maybe not respecting some boundaries, but at the same time, that is what our cultura and our family is about. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for telling us about who you are. And I think my next question could also piggyback off of where you come from, but as we get talking about equity and centering around a process and a mindset, to you, when you are asked to define equity, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
It's sharing. I will just relate it to one thing, and it's sharing. And for me, it's sharing something that you have. For the longest time, I was equity. I will think about, okay, how much money do we have if I buy a house? How much money? That was my definition of equity. Today, it's a different thing. It's about sharing. How much can I give to other people? How much, and this could be my time, this could be my knowledge, this could be whatever I have. Could I share a little bit with somebody else? Like I said, and I relate this like to having people the opportunity. Like you give them the opportunity, share what you have, share what you know, and then you will make a change in their lives. Yeah.
More like a noun, or sorry, a verb, like an action of sharing, of coming together. Can you tell us how you're doing that as part of Luther Burbank, and now your role and what you support internally with Luther Burbank Center?
Oh, I think the LBC, it was a dream job for me. It's been working great and I've been learning a lot. I feel like we've been making a good change in the community, and I'm finally starting to realize all of this. It's like, wow, I look at all the things that we've been doing, because everything started not like a game, but it was just like, dude, do you think this is gonna work? Doing a mariachi, something that it's nobody did mariachi before here, and it was a new project. It was something new. And I will say, I give all the credit to LBC for trying. We're connected to a lot of different organizations, schools, organizations like Creative Sonoma. But I give the credit to LBC just because they said, let's do it. Let's give it a try. Let's see if this works. We're ready to have a change. And I was in school while I was teaching, and we started doing the mariachi summer camps. That kept me very motivated to continue my education and say, oh, I could have a career in music. I could go to college and then come back and teach. And not just for LBC, for other organizations or for a school or something. But LBC gave me that place where I feel comfortable, where I feel I can share my about my culture, about my knowledge with other people.
I love that. I think that when I think of organizations and what they can do to create more opportunities for equity, it's trust. It's giving that kind of sense that you're talking about, that maybe you had an idea, but LBC was, they gave you the full backbone, maybe some funding, some capacity building. And from that point, I think now when I hear the mariachi, when I hear the little kids, playing and really going deep into their culture and the richness that's there, I know I want my 3-year-old to participate, right? And he doesn't even know it, but there's something to say about not trying to hide, and rather like, how do you embed it and how do you integrate it, right? One of my fondest memories of Ensemble is a couple of years ago when Dolores Huerta came to Hannah Boy Center here in Sonoma, and they sang Las Mañanitas to Dolores Huerta, right? An icon, a hero of our farm workers, of a lot of what drove our families here to this region. And to see that come full circle, right? She was an activist, she supported. And now what you've been able to create, which is a musical opportunity to express that language and to thank her too, and to sing Las Mañanitas. I think you remember that event a couple of years ago.
I will never forget it, even for the kids, to hear about Dolores Huerta in school. It's one thing, but to go and say, oh, I was singing for her. I have my students saying, well, we were singing for that lady. She's so important. She did so many great things for our community. And those are the experience that's the best pay I get from doing what I do. For the longest time, I would say, oh, I love music. And I know my career is shifting. Now seeing all the kids we have two students one of them is senior. It's a senior. He just got accepted to a university. And it's just like, oh my God, I don't know what makes me more excited, to play with them or to see them like grow and go and look for that new opportunity. So I do recall that time with the Dolores Huerta and many more that we, exactly like those that we have with all the kids.
Yes. And I want to bring it back to that is the epitome, right? Like that is, you're talking about representation, you're talking about cultural richness, foundation setting, and the trajectory in lives of the children in my life, your life, right? That's being changed with this level of equity and presence. But it's not always easy, right? And I'm sure this is why these conversations are so important, to highlight also the challenges. And maybe through the process, I remember you sharing a story about your first camp in Healdsburg. And I think that the audience should hear that too, because it's easy to turn the page and say, look, what a success. Let's have more mariachi camps and let's have these statewide. But it doesn't always happen in a linear motion. And it doesn't always happen in a way that people would want to support it ongoing, right? Because you, just like everything, there's barriers, there's challenges that we have to overcome. So can you tell us a little bit about that? What challenges have you faced in this work? And then also, what strategies have really helped you become more resilient and bring Mariachi Ensemble to where it's at now?
Of course. So one of the things that I've been doing is I've been trying to do research with, by myself and with my team, like what do we do to make, what new programs do we create? And it's just like, oh, I go to the JC, I go to Sonoma State, I go to the community, and there's a lot of programs in our community that already exist to help people. And sometimes the question is about how do we get the people? Sometimes it's not about having the program. It's about feeling comfortable, getting the people in your place, getting the people to do what we're doing. I love that story. It was actually in Cloverdale, which is the last town of our county. We had 25 kids who signed up. We had 25 applications. It was our first year of mariachi camp there. Very excited. We got to LBC at 7:30 in the morning and get into a van. We drove to Cloverdale. When we got there, we had 0 students. And it was like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? What happened? What, not even one? Not even one. And well, we had 2 choices to say, let's go back, or what are we gonna do? So I had the idea and I said, hey guys, how about we grab our instruments and go on the streets? This is gonna be like the circus. Like, hey, we are here. And that's exactly what we did. All the teachers said, let's do it. We grab our instruments. We were singing on the streets and say, hey, we had the applications. We knew where the kids were living in all the areas. So we went to the neighborhood. We were playing music. Everybody came out and said, what's happening? Hey, you forgot that you signed up for mariachi classes.
We came to get you. Come on.
Yeah.
En el carro. Let's go.
It's like, I want to see you tomorrow. Today it's going to be done, but tomorrow we want to see you there. It was just like walking for 2-3 hours around the neighborhood and doing exactly the same. People will come out. They're like, oh my God, what are these crazy, people doing with the instruments? But the next day, guess what? We got the number, the 35, the 25, plus a few more that came to the mariachi. And that was the point where I said, you literally have to go. It was hard even for the community, it was hard to believe that they were getting something. they had summer school, but never a fun program where they could send their kids. So when we did that, that was the challenge. You could say a challenge that said, you know what, didn't work in Cloverdale, let's go. But we went the other route. And I'm talking about, I give credit to the teachers. I give credit to the CEO of LBC show up that morning and he said, what are we gonna do? I said, if you let us, we'll walk into the street. He said, if you're comfortable, let's do it. And like I said, the next day, we had all our students back, and ever since we had a wonderful mariachi summer camp there. We have kids who are part of the ensemble who drive three times a week to come to LBC and get music classes. And I'm talking about 5 or 6 kids who their parents after work show the dedication and come all the way to the center to get more of their culture, to get more of the things that they like.
Thank you for sharing that. Even when I hear that story again, I think of, now it makes me also think of something new, which is what you mentioned about those kids, those children feeling seen and feeling like they were important, right? It wasn't just a paper transaction of an application and then they show up, but the fact that you guys took the time and went out into their community, it really kind of showed them that they were being listened to, right? And they were being seen. Y ahora, like there is very true for our culture, we reciprocate that with respect and with showing up. So, to me, it also exemplifies something that typically when we do programming, we think about the most efficient way to run our programs. But something that I'm becoming aware of even more is that intersection between equity and efficiency. And I think that's a big takeaway from what you're saying, from what I see at La Luz, from our audience who is planning to put programs together. It's not reaching equity. You may have to do it at the cost of efficiency, but you know that it's going to be more intentional, it's going to be more integrated, and it's going to lead to a better outcome, even if it takes a little longer, and even if it takes, thinking out of the box. But yes, efficiency may have to go out the window for a little bit while you try these things. And it's part of, again, having a process and not so much of an outcome. I think the other thing that you mentioned was there's kind of like 2 lessons that you take away when you think about equity. If you mentioned like it takes time, and then you also need to have different approaches. Do you want to share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I just think in general, it'll take time. And as I'm growing, I'm learning. The first year we did mariachi here in Santa Rosa, I wanted everybody to be part of the mariachi. And yes, we started with 35 students. That was our plan, and we got 50. And I wanted to get 60. We had to say no to a few people. And I was like, why not? I didn't even understand what, like, the process that it involves when you have to ask for lunch, when you have to ask for admission to the school. For me, I was a kid, like wanting everything, like I couldn't even understand why are we not letting all these kids take a music class. And sometimes the process makes it really, really difficult. So sometimes the process makes it really difficult. So it's, if I'm understanding, it takes time. It takes time to do whatever you want to do, but you have to start something. And what I will say is just make a change and start low. When I say start low, I always think about my mom, and I'm not underestimating my mother. I'm not underestimating my father, but I always see the struggles that they had. When they took us to school, when they took us to programs, it was just like, what programs? I'll take you to the doctor, but it was hard for them to look for a program for us. They didn't have that connection because they always felt scared about the application process. They always felt scared about it's going to be too much, and then I don't have the money to send all of you and your brothers. So it's a huge process. I can tell you, we have families who have 4 or 5 kids in as part of the mariachi. Imagine if they were paying that money, they wouldn't be able to afford any of that. So it's totally a process. It takes time. I understand now that it's a big process, but we can get many kids. That's my goal. I don't ask for anything, but how many more kids can we serve every year?
I love that. One thing that I think we both agreed on too was that how much sacrifice our families made for us to be here, for us to have these opportunities. And it takes me back to that idea of being able to have a roof over your head, food to eat, clothes to wear, be warm, which was our parents' priority when they brought us here, right? When they made that huge life change. But I wonder if you also feel like the impact that you're now having through the arts, that it transcends those basic needs, and it's actually maybe now about taking up space, about creating a sense of belonging. And you know, do you think that, I mean, to me, that's what Mariachi Ensemble represents. But what about to you and to all the students that are participating in your camps?
Oh, of course, we have LBC has been created in these huge events for many years for the community, such as Fiesta and Posada. But now to have a mariachi that plays and it's part of those events, and the families get to come, and the families get to see their kids preparing for those shows. It's great. It's not even about the music anymore. Music became 1%. Music is the entertainment part of what we're doing. It got out of not out of control. I think we have it very controlled. It got to the point where the families are coming to tell us, you know what, I can with my kids. You know what, where can I go get help? Where can I go to school? All of this, and that means that we have to do the research and say, you know what, we have this other organization that it's providing this kind of help. We have this. We had people from the JC coming to give talks to the parents of how to send their kids to school. We had people from the Hannah Center coming to talk to the parents and learning how to deal with their kids and because it's a different culture. You know, their parents came from a different country with a different mentality. And then how do you expect the kids to just understand what you went through when you were a kid? That's hard for a parent. And finding all, like, we're focusing on the art, we're focusing on the music, but these people, these parents, the group we have, they feel so comfortable coming to us and ask, where can I go? What do you have for us? That it created the need for us to provide more help. And that's the fun part. Like having these people to come to our center and talk to kids of how to go to school, how to do an application, how do they get scholarships. That's huge. We do it in Spanish so that the parents understand. And another thing, it's not every Latino in this country is poor, and not every white person or person of color it's rich. You know, I want to go beyond just working with the Latino people. There's a huge need in the entire community for arts, for education, and we're talking about mariachi, and that's my thing. Just think about LBC and all the school shows that we do. Thousands of people who come to the center, who their parents don't have the money sometimes to take them to a zoo or to take them to a museum or to take them to watch a show. We put those kids on a bus from their school and, hey, you need to come to school. That's the impact. That's where I feel like, okay, mariachi is one thing of what we're trying to do. Mariachi is one thing. Of course, it's helping in that part of the community with the Latino community, but I want to help more. And can I tell you, the parents feel very happy. I think at least that's what they have expressed to us. They feel happy, they feel comfortable asking a question, finding an answer, or where to go and ask for more help.
I so appreciate that, because it's also a again, it shows that I'm a mom of a 3-year-old, but it's such positive reinforcement rather than negative, right? Like, you need to get this service, you need this assistance and this help, but rather just saying, like, this is here. And now that you're participating in our camp, there's so many organizations that are willing to help. And if you are open to it, then, let's connect you, let's make referrals. But it's not with a sense of making the family maybe feel like they're any less, or like it's charity. It's actually more to uplift them and support them, and help them, look at a holistic a view of their life. Thank you for sharing that, Jose, because I think that's very, very powerful. The other thing, and now I'm going to start zooming out a little bit. So when I look at Sonoma County, and I was also born and raised here, but so there has been so much transition in demographics. I remember when there was only like 20 of us Latinos at Pioneer High School, and now the demographics have definitely skewed, and now there's a lot more in general too, like you said, like more diversity. But how do you think that the arts can build bridges of understanding in Sonoma County? And if there are any examples, I know obviously your mariachi camp is one of them, but just in general, when you think of Sonoma County, where it's been, where it's at, and where it's heading, and then also the arts as an opportunity, how would you tell us, our audience, about an opportunity to build bridges?
Of course, what you said, the demographics are changing. There's a lot of more Latino people in our schools. There's a bigger need. That's true. But like I said, when I think about the arts, it's about both, everyone, white, Latino, Black, whatever you want to call it, it's the same thing. Are the arts changing lives? I think so. You know how I can tell you that? Because of COVID. The kids that we have, they decide if they want to come or not. This is not a class that I'm going to give them a grade and say, you know what, you got a D or you got an F, and that's okay. They want to come. They're doing their work because they feel like it made a change. During COVID, I had not one, but 2 or 3 students said, you know what, I need to stop for 2 or 3 months. And I said, that's okay. I think, because I was about to quit too. I was just like, this is too hard. This is too much technology. This is too much. Like, I don't feel like I'm doing my job the way I was doing it. But it's a new era. It was something special that happened to us, and everybody's in the same boat. The arts help? I think so, because at least one student from the ones that left came back and said, you know what, Jose, I thought it was going to be easier without the violin. Can I join? That was 2 months after. And I joined. I just feel like there's nothing to do. So now I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to focus a little more on the violin and see what comes out of there. The arts are creating a big impact. The arts, it's just, I'm all about the art. When I was in Mexico, when I was a kid, I was that kid that liked to perform, liked to be on every show, singing competition thing. Was I the best student for school? No. And unfortunately, up there, you were like, oh, you're the latoso, you're just so stubborn, don't like to listen. I was a different kid. I just didn't learn with numbers and a whiteboard. It was all about music and acting and planting. And now I understand how big of an impact those the activities that my mom and dad put me in, the schools that they took me, made a change in my life. So I want that opportunity for a lot of kids. Not every student is going to go to college. Not everybody is going to go. But if they find a connection, I cannot tell you how many kids at the beginning I had because one of the rules to be in our mariachi is you have to have A's and B's to be in the mariachi ensemble. And that's really difficult. That's really difficult to want to be the best player and then have A's and B's. What do you do if I have one kid who got in love with the guitar? he was failing all his classes at the beginning. Okay, time's up for the guitar. You don't pass, you don't pass your classes. And the guitar took him to that different level. He said, I have to compromise. I have to do better in school in order for me to keep doing what I love. So finding something that you like, finding a place where you belong to, that's the key to make a change. It's gonna take years for us to really make a change in our community, but I guarantee you that in 10 years, I'm gonna see all those 80 kids who I have right now coming out of graduate school, coming doctors, lawyers, musicians, and that's gonna be a happy day for me. That's gonna be like, oh, the concerts we had, nothing. You are gonna be making a change in the community. You're gonna be making a change of your life. I always said it, education, it's the key to make a change. Mariachi, it's part of entertainment. I'm just using mariachi with LBC to see how can we help these kids? How can we make them think that they can be successful? How can we plant the seed for them to realize that they can go to college, that they can have a better life? Mariachi, it's not gonna make their life just better if they don't connect it to something else, to school, to all of the opportunities we have in our community.
I love that. The whole being experiential, and now there's a term for it, right? Like, how do you learn? Oh, I'm hands-on, and it's an experiential curriculum, but a lot of times that's not necessarily the go-to, right? It's more about being able to score high on standardized tests, and it just leaves a whole side of the individual out, especially with these students, a whole side of their creative side that is not seen. There's so many examples of how sports has been able to do that, right? Like sports psychology and motivation. But yes, the arts, and it's also a form, it's a tool, it's an incentive for these students to continue to think about what else is beyond them. Where do they see themselves in 3 years, 5 years, right? And I just love how you're connecting that. I want to talk a little bit about COVID, because you alluded to it. Last year was an unprecedented year for all of us, on a personal level, on a professional level. There was a lot of things that were happening. There was a lot of isolation in our community, especially in our Latino community. When you look at the percentages of COVID infection rate, early on, it was disproportionately affecting our Latino community. And so not only, if you can walk us through what that year felt like and how you overcame and were resilient, but also now moving into the future. Yes, so let's start there, because with COVID, there's so much trauma that's going to be left. There's isolation that we need to do something about. But let's start talking a little bit. And what issues did you see coming up with your students in terms of equity, and given COVID of 2020?
Yes. So even today, we're still having internet problems. The access of how do we connect? We live in the outside areas. We don't have the same speed for the internet. Of course, feeling comfortable when they're in there taking their classes. It's just like, it's very difficult for kids to practice music and not have a performance as a group. For the Mariachi Ensemble, what's a little bit easier, because they were like thinking, okay, eventually we're gonna go back, and I know how it feels to go and play for Dolores Huerta. I know how it feels to get in a bus and go out and perform. So no problem. But for the kids in the intermediate and skills mariachi, where they're learning music, and it's just like, why are we doing this? What am I gonna be getting? They did a performance, 1 or 2, but they're still in the scenario where it's just like, why am I doing this? So it was hard for me to explain, like, okay, eventually this is not the way it used to work, or it's different. So every day we created a new thing. I have a great team. I have to say that LBC over prepares. every day for a year. We meet with our team. I'm part of the education and community engagement team. Every morning for a year, what are we going to do? What are we going to create? How many videos are we going to create? Everybody became professional at technology. Our director finding, here's this link, go do this seminar, do this to record, recording with stands, recording with a lot of different things to provide the best material for the kids. We were not prepared for any of that, but we took the challenge. And the kids, the families, of course, the families had to work. A lot of their kids were taking care of their younger siblings at home, so they couldn't take the classes. All of these issues became really huge when it comes to the mariachi. Like I never thought that, let's say I have a space and I have an office, but my brother, I'll put him as an example, he's in the mariachi, and I can see how my brothers are walking in the back because they have one space for everybody. And sometimes this is true, where in a house or the living room, they don't have an office or an extra room where they can go and take their class. So it's always, you can see it like, hey, it's time for me to play. They're like telling their family, be quiet because I'm gonna play. And then they come, and at this point, I just love it. I'm hopeful that we're gonna go back, but it was definitely very difficult at the beginning. Very, very difficult.
I love that. I also want to make sure that we mention that you saw some of these students paying a little bit more attention, right? Because it was Zoom, you couldn't do the whole interaction, but they were now paying attention to when their turn was coming or how to best play the strings of the violin. Where sometimes when you're in a group setting, you can go with the cues of others. But I guess the silver lining is that those that really honed into the instrument that they were playing, like they took it to a whole nother level during COVID and Zoom.
Of course, yeah. Like when you have to do it by yourself, right? You have to learn that part. So right now it's just like, okay, you, Caroline, Stephanie, it's your turn. And then just like, boom, here's my part. And they want to feel successful. They have to practice. There's no one else to, behind them or that they can copy. I would remember sitting in the orchestra and I would look at my partner and be like, okay, this is what she's doing. Let me follow her. That was helpful. But no having the mariachi kids the same way, but no having anyone next to you, it was a completely so sad in many ways, very helpful in other ways. We learned a lot of things. Well, I don't think mariachi will be ever the same. We will adopt a lot of new techniques. We will use everything that we've been learning. We've been going to share whatever we know with our community. And we've been doing, yes, for mariachi, for dancing, for ukulele, for drums, for painting, a lot of videos to have that show art and represent the things we do for our community.
And now that I am sure this is also true to your programming, but there's a few less barriers, right? So like if transportation was a barrier, then now you have Zoom. So if for some reason you can't make it to the location, you have access to that program. Or if there's translation that has to happen, there's a pretty good ability to do it within Zoom. So there are lessons, I suppose, that came from COVID that we can continue to implement that kind of helps support that even playing field, that equity that we're talking about in our different communities, not just our Latino community, right? But there's a lot of lessons that will be helpful moving forward.
Exactly, and hopefully I don't lose my job tomorrow by saying this, but we're working with the best mariachi in the world right now to help us do our summer camp this year. And it's just like,
tell me more. I want to look at this.
I can just tell you that it's the best mariachi in the world. They've been the first mariachi that existed for 140 years. We're working with them to see if they could help us teach our mariachi summer camp, where we can connect the roots and the style and the tradition they have with all the music and whatever the kids are doing. So that's one of the benefits about COVID and learning how to do it through Zoom. So bad things, but really good things. And us always looking to find the connection and making the change.
I love that. And so you gave us a little bit of a breaking news. So we'll look forward to that and hearing more. I do want to leave room for questions, Jose, but one last question is, because I think this will be helpful, is there anything you can say to people in the audience that may not be sure or be intimidated, afraid about moving forward on building equity in their programming? Something that could maybe help them make that transition, make that leap.
Yeah, if you're listening to this topic, it's because you if you're part of this conversation, I'm sure you made already a big change somehow or with something that you do in the life of many kids or many people. I will say, I recommend, it's our community. For example, the Latino community, we start low. We went very humble and say, this is something about your culture. This is something that you like. It's mariachi. Why don't we start a new program? And look where we are today, connecting families with culture, connecting kids with schools. And I think it's working, and we still have to do more work. So I know you're doing it. Just go and try your best. I'm lucky to be part of an organization that it's willing to try. I'm lucky to be part of an organization that it's, in fact, we're right now in a training, and it's a diversity, equity, and inclusion, the entire organization. I want to be in an organization that it's willing and learning about how to treat other people. So for you, you're already doing it. How can you make a change to start make a even bigger change, in our community with what you know? That's equity for me. With what you know, with what you have, what could you do to make a change?
Thank you, Jose. I love that. And yes, if you're here, if you're joining, it's because you are already in that path. And there's a lot of resources. There's a lot of opportunities to continue to build that. But definitely, for me, also a big takeaway is think about it as a process. Think about it as a mindset, and that it won't be getting to that goal in the next week, in the next year or so, because we're so goal driven, but it's more about enjoying and really learning as you go. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Sam. Jose, it was a pleasure talking to
Thank you
you.
so much.
Yeah,
Great.
this has just been a fantastic conversation. I just ended up taking tons and tons of notes, like, oh yeah, that's a great point, great point, great point. So I really appreciate that conversation. I love Debbie Yarrow, if she's available to jump in on this as well. We did have one question I'll ask you before I do have another question for you, but someone from a local arts center said, how will you continue to use Zoom after things open up? Or will you continue to use it? And that's been a question. I know that's come up, that sometimes that can provide equity or it can provide a barrier. It has a double edge to it. So if you want to share your feelings on that or let us know your plans.
Well, I think things are starting to opening up, and we want to do it very safely for everybody. So we're going to continue using Zoom to the point where families feel comfortable. We hope that we can do a mix of everything, but like I said, this opportunity of having the best band, in the world, teaching our kids, this is one way that we can do it, and it's an opportunity for us to take it. So we will definitely try to find ways where we can keep incorporating the Zoom classes and things like that.
Fantastic. And then I just wanted to, I was really struck by your belief, and I was going to ask it, Veronica, you chimed in your very last question, helped to expand on that a little bit about the trust of organizations. I know that's been a question that has come up a lot for those of us that plan our everything from budgeting to the type of programming we'll be doing, where to take our processes, and for you to say to trust it, start low and slow. I really love that too. I was once told that to get a population integrated or interested in a program, you plan on 5 years or 10 years. It's not an immediate thing. It's a way to start. Do you want to talk any more about that? I would love any other feelings you have, Veronica, from your position at La Luz, or Jose with your experiences about that whole trust. And I also love the equity at the cost of efficiency, budgeting time and not just money for this, because it does take the time.
Yeah, on my side, I would just say exactly, start slow, but start, do something, where it's moving, and
Yeah.
try to find a connection. Behind me, it's just like there's a lot of microphones and things like that. Behind me, there's a huge team. I was just a kid who came out of school, and to be part of LBC, it was like a dream job when it comes to learning. I have a wonderful director. We have a wonderful CEO. I have the best manager. I have the best, making me feel comfortable, because even for me, that was a shock, I would never imagine having a job where I would be connected with all these people. And they really made a change, saying, you know what, I know this much. How is this connecting to mariachi? I know how to plan. I know how to do the budgets. I know how to do organize. So behind what I do, there's a huge team in order to make it work. So just go and really start with a huge collaboration.
I would definitely agree. I'd also add, though, that this question comes up on so many levels, not just program integration. We've talked about it on board level representation. And I would say that the easiest thing sometimes is to think we're going to outsource it, or we're going to work with an organization that already does it. And so all of a sudden it's going to transform our organization into that equitable or representative organization. And the truth is, it's not. The truth is that you have to build awareness. You have to build connection within our community, and whether that's Latino or not, because Jose, you have a good point. There's so many different layers and complexity. But yeah, I would say start, and also think about who's around you. Think about, how do you bring in an advisor? A lot of times, and I can talk about myself, there's also a bit of distrust in our voice, because for a very long time we've been told, no, you listen, you follow the rules, and then you'll be successful. And all of a sudden people are looking at us and saying, well, what do you want to do? What rules do you want to put together? And that is also, it brings up a lot of emotions and a lot of like subconscious biases that we need to put aside, that we need to trust our voice. So it's look around you. You probably already have an advisor. You probably already have somebody. It's just a matter of entertaining it, having those conversations, and then saying, hey, how about, would you like to advise us on our programs? Or maybe we are thinking about you as a board member, but we like to introduce you to our process, and we'd like to introduce you to some board members, something that meets us halfway and allows us to feel comfortable in that role as well. So I would add that, but definitely getting started is the first step in the right direction.
And Debbie, I didn't know if you wanted to add anything around arts education. For those on the call who haven't met Debbie, Debbie is our arts education manager for Creative Sonoma, and she is funded through a series of grants that we received to staff the Sonoma County Arts Education Alliance, which is doing a lot of work around making sure that there's equitable access to the arts in schools across the entire county. So I didn't know if we wanted to chime in here or talk a little bit. I really appreciated Jose and Veronica also talking about resiliency and the way that that could provide the vessel that got people to services that they need. The arts were there, or this organization is there, that may be pivoting a little bit from what you actually are doing as a music teacher to, oh, you're comfortable with me, let me help you access these other services. So I thought that was an interesting way to approach this as well. And Debbie, I'll let you talk because you're the expert in this field.
Well, it just strikes me that, Jose, you speak of music as the tool, and Veronica, you were talking about that hands-on learning, and the arts are really that very vehicle, right? That we talk about the what we want our students to have, and the arts are the how. And I just love that because the arts embody everything. I have this list of leadership and identity and opportunity, empathy, belonging, and the arts really do embody all of that. And I'm wondering, I think about advocacy so much. And Jose, I imagine you as an advocate, you're talking about having the relationship with those students and being their advocate, being their voice. What can our community do to be more of an advocate for programs like yours?
Well, I think it's, yes, I would say yes, start with the new ideas, not be afraid of trying. Like I said, behind mariachi, there's a huge part. You guys are a big part of what we do. And you didn't do mariachi 10 years ago. And this was something new, supporting the new ideas, the new projects that people want. I think more kids are gonna want to do mariachi or something. I can not tell you how many kids are taking classes of with mecha or learning about the culture. So I think the more connection that we have with school and programs like this, the bigger the change that we're gonna make. If you just tell kids do one thing, this is mariachi, then we create a revolution. But if you do what they did with me, because I'm the example, and I don't want to take credit, I'm just humbly saying I'm the example. I came from a different country. My teachers were my inspiration to go to college. And they said, if you like music, go to college, learn about a different style, which put me to learn about classical, jazz, and that understanding makes me respect those styles and say, how can I incorporate mariachi? So that was the community, the teachers, the school helped me go to that pathway. And if we really dedicate our kids to go to school and find a connection with what they love, or finding a place where they can belong to, finding one activity where they can express their feelings, I think we're gonna be in a good place. If we don't focus on doing anything for the kids and the arts, it's gonna be tough. Because if nothing else, when I grab my violin, it helps me express my feelings. Sometimes it's hard for kids to express their feelings with other people. It's became another issue. It's becoming kids, blocking their cameras all the time because they don't feel comfortable. And when they're doing art and they're saying, hey, I'm a different guy, it's not, I was playing a different role. I feel comfortable pretending that I'm somebody else. Eventually having them learn about all of this, it's gonna be great. Mariachi, right now, all our mariachi kids are taking a theater class. So that's something I forgot. Mariachi, like I said, 1%. What's the other role? What are they doing with their music? And any program can be connected to other things. Let's work as a team. I'm a musician. With my violin, I can do one thing. But if I connect my music, if I talk to more people, we can create a band. That's the community. You guys are the instrument. There's so many instruments around our community. We need to work together. We need to work together and really work as a team. Like I said, when I was a kid, it was just a kid when I was starting to teach. I even didn't understand why we have to have a number for food, or this is how much it costs to clean the school and all. But we were able to put all the package together to create a band. And we need more of these conversations where it's all about the kids in the future, and it's not about us.
Well, I don't know how else we could close that, but that was fantastic. Thank you. And that you gave us about 4 different calls to action as well. So that's fantastic. Veronica, did you have anything else to add?
The last thing I would say is, in the service sector, because obviously that's where I am from, we talk a lot about meeting the immediate needs. but we're also thinking about that sense of belonging. And so I think there's a collaboration and partnership that can happen between Jose's programs, Quetzalen here at Ballet Folklórico, because it's not just about helping people survive, but although it's coined, right, it's also about thriving. It's also about belonging. And so we're, as a community, we need to be brave and make that next step and say, what, yes, we're going to help you. Yes, you know, you're going to have your services, but do you feel like you're part of this community? Because that's a whole nother level of explanation. So I would just add that. And I think that the arts are really going to be key in answering that question.
Fantastic. Another call to action. So that's fantastic. We're ready to go out and take it on. So thank you so much, Jose, for your time today. This has been great to hear from you and learn more. I had heard about that there were challenges at the very start of the first Cloverdale camp, but I did not hear that fantastic story of you taking it to the streets. So I'm so glad you shared that. And thank you so much, Veronica, for ushering in this fantastic conversation. And we hope to see everyone again soon. We'll have more on this topic, watch news from us and other topics. And Debbie, do you have anything else to add?
No, thank you. A wonderful conversation.
All right. Thank you so much. And we'll see everyone again soon. Have a wonderful week.
Thank you.